Good afternoon, everyone. Carasoft Technology would like to welcome you to our ServiceNow Federal Tech Talk, Establishing a Successful Citizen Developer Program. Joining us today from ServiceNow, we have Mark Maurice, Senior Advisory Solutions Consultant for the Creator Workflows. Before we get started, I would like to quickly go over a few housekeeping items. Please note that all lines have been muted to reduce any kind of background noise during the presentation. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A pod on the left side of your screen, and we will do our best to answer by the end of the presentation or follow up with you offline. This webinar is being recorded and a copy will be emailed to you. Just to tell you a little bit about Carasoft, we are a trusted government IT solutions provider supporting public sector organizations across federal, state, and local government agencies, including education and healthcare markets. At this time, I'd like to hand the floor over to our speaker. Mark, the floor is all yours.
Hey, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar. Mark Maurice here. I'm a Senior Advisory Solution Consultant for the Creator Workflow on the ServiceNow Federal team. I've been in business process management for well over 20 years now, and in a previous capacity, I worked on helping customers build centers of excellence. And at ServiceNow for 4 years now, I get to work with customers every day, helping them on the digital transformation journey using our low-code app engine. So today we're going to talk about, based on what we heard from our customers, how to implement successfully a citizen development program. So for years, we've had the capabilities in the ServiceNow platform to build applications, but we actually raised that level up for federal agencies like yourself to be able to speed up and scale with Creator Workflows. Examples like the State Department, where they've been able, due to COVID, to really accelerate the pace of development. They've built 10 to 12 ServiceNow-based applications in 3 to 4 weeks. And based on what the former deputy CIO said, they were not just small apps, they were big apps, tracking every COVID requirements for every country on the planet. So that's what we want to be able to talk about is really how ServiceNow is going to help you speed and scale your organization with a citizen development program. All right, so first, we're going to talk about why putting in place a citizen development program and who are the citizen developers, what a citizen developer program is all about, and then we look into how to get started and how to put a successful citizen development program in place. Right? In this agenda, there is no when, if you noticed, because the best time to start to plant a tree was actually 20 years ago, but the next best time to start is now, right? And you're going to see why it's the best time to start now is all of the problems that we've seen with federal agencies today. I talk with federal agencies on a daily basis, and it's always about aging or legacy systems and challenges with those systems, all the problems that they can pose for the governments. Those systems are expensive to maintain and really hard to upgrade at times, making them susceptible to security vulnerabilities. And those problems are really difficult to address. They make it difficult and really a lot of headaches for agencies to really be able to support their mission. And not only that, but also they have trouble finding the staff who knows how to use the systems or technology that those systems were built on. And on top of that, that's gonna get better. That's actually gonna get worse based on data from OPM. They projected that the percentage of federal employees who would be eligible for retirement this year will be up to 45% for some of the agencies, as you can see here. And that was a projection 5 years ago, and this 5 years is this year, right? And the numbers might be higher because we heard from many individuals that postponed their decision to retire due to the pandemic. And that creates a number of issues as well, right? A loss of institutional knowledge. This expertise is really hard to replace quickly. And when you lose that knowledge, then that means increased workload for people to try to catch up and trying to learn as we go. And both of these issues combined will likely disrupt government operations and citizen services One way to mitigate that is really starting to think in terms of using a platform to start transferring that institutional knowledge and keep that expertise before retiring employees, employees that possess that knowledge retire. And provide the ability for people of all skill level to modernize those legacy applications by giving them the local tools to do that. And the ability to go after manual processes and really improve those business processes to improve the efficiency and the agility of the organization. And we've seen that citizen development can help fill the skills gap left by the retirement of many experienced employees in federal agencies. But then, who is a citizen developer? And who can become one? How do you become one? Right? And actually, I talked to a lot of federal agencies, and you will be surprised how many citizen developers you already have in your agency. A citizen developer is simply an individual who's not trained in traditional software development, but they are change agents. They are the type of people who identify problems and opportunities within the organization. And they're the type of people who seek out solutions to address them. They're your typical subject matter experts on a given process. And they are some, often technical oriented. So a citizen development program by extension, there are many variations of what it is, but at the bottom line, it's always the same, which is let's allow a broader group of the organization to innovate and create applications on a local platform. For some of our ServiceNow customers, citizen developers are just pro developers that just work in the line of business. For some of our customers, there are business analysts that are familiar with tools and technology, whether that's Excel or some other tools. Right? So we'll jump into the how to establish a successful citizen development program. Over time, we've captured lessons learned or habits of our customers that have proven to be successful with citizen development program. So what did they do at the beginning that set them up for success? What are the steps that they follow? Right? And so what I did is that I wanted to present those guidelines around the framework of Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Because the point he makes is very salient, is that you have to make a paradigm shift in order to be effective. You have to think about things differently. And we know that sometimes we've been doing this for so long. We work with legacy systems or technology, and it's hard sometimes to see the trees from the forest. And there are progressions and stages that you need to go through in terms of building up your capacity to become more effective. So the first stage is about working on yourself as an individual and later progressing to become someone who can have a significant impact across your community. Citizen development follows that same strategy. Success breeds success. You cannot just jump into a fully developed enterprise level if you do not have any experience with citizen development. It's definitely a progression in which each level supports the next. It starts with the ability to deliver a successful project, right? And I hear so many times from federal agencies, oh, I want to go after a large big bang project, but it's not the path for success. You first need to prove that you can deliver value with quick wins. Then you build up the team competency and infrastructure for driving process improvement across the enterprise. And by following that progression and the very specific habits at each step that we'll talk about here, that many successful customers of ServiceNow have used, you'll be able to move up to the levels of a successful citizen development program. Okay? So the first step is successful project delivery. And the first habit to pick is really to pick a problem that provides business value. I see a wide range of different option that people go after is sometimes they start with a very small project to test the technology, or sometimes they go after a big bang legacy modernization. But often in both ways, it's not a manageable problem in the very bound time frame. So what you need to go is really after a problem that a small team is familiar with, that is going to be impactful to the organization, and that you'll be able to continuously improve and iterate. And you need to be agile, because you know things change, and you need to look at having a quick win first, going through a successful first iteration, and then you'll be able to justify the next app. So once you selected a business problem to solve, next is to adopt a low-code platform. So obviously, you know, we're talking about ServiceNow, ServiceNow App Engine here, but we've seen customers that have 2, 3, and more platforms. And having, you know, 1 or 2 is fine, but more than 3 is a problem, because customers like that, they tend to be less successful as citizen developers, and everybody gets overwhelmed by the choices. You know, what training do I have to take? What platform do I choose based on that requirements, and so on? And how do I integrate now this platform and this other platform on top of each other? And this may sound counterintuitive, especially for a talk about starting a citizen development program. But don't focus exclusively on citizen development, because many successful customers, they started the journey with pro developers that connected with the business, found a good problem to solve, and they together accelerated development of this solution. And so it's not mutually exclusive. It's not citizen development or pro development. It's all together doing a great job of collaborating, selecting the best selecting the best problem to solve, and also working together to select the best tools for the job. Because you may have a problem that's going to require a local application. You're going to use ServiceNow App Engine Studio. And then for some problems where you may want to remove a lot of data entry between multiple systems, you want to use a robotic process automation that ServiceNow has. And some of the tools you may want to go just fully pro developer. So to get central IT comfortable with citizen development, this is the thing that I hear on a weekly basis, is really that everyone needs to understand that the ServiceNow application development model enables you to safely build applications without interfering with others in your instance. So think of your ServiceNow instance as an apartment complex. Each app represents an individual apartment. Right? So you own your own apartment or application, shares the same foundation and amenities with other apartments, like the security system and infrastructure. But your apartment will have its own security code, for example. So the same way you're protected in your apartment by walls, ServiceNow protects each app by putting it inside something that we call a scope. And within this protected space, you still have the freedom to tailor your app to your specific needs, just like painting your apartment to whatever color you want, because it's your space. Right? And we do have tools in place in the platform to make sure that everybody follows standards, because there are common things that we need everybody to follow, because there are some common space that we share. Right? And when we start building on the platform, just like inside an apartment complex, people have different access and responsibilities. I hear sometimes people say, oh, I'm afraid to start building on the platform because I need to give people admin access. This is far from the truth. The system administrator, you see, is like a building manager. They're responsible for the overall maintenance, the configuration, the operation of the platform, making sure that it runs smoothly and it's secure. The pro developer, right, in black, is like a handyman. They may have access to some apartments or apps but they cannot do everything. They have specific delegated development access to help people build applications. Right? And the App Engine Administrator above, right? Maybe it's something new that we've had for a couple of years now, but new for people that have been using ServiceNow for a long time. That person is similar to a floor supervisor, right? They manage the App Engine Studio processes. They are the administrator only of their floor, of their corner, of all the citizen developments. They are not an admin of the platform. Right? So the App Engine admin looks at the citizen development processes, reviews each request of owners of those apps that submits deployment requests, validation of those applications. They are really the tower of control for citizen development. And they work in conjunction with the system administrator to make sure that they follow the guidelines of the platform, right? And the citizen developer at the top, they are like the apartment residents. They may take on additional responsibilities as an employee to improve their own living space, right? They see a problem in their department and they want to fix it. And sometimes they may own that space, making them the app admin of their own app, right? They have more power over their own app, but it does not grant them any other admin privileges, right? So you don't need to be the building manager to add plans to your living space. That's really the beauty of the platform, is that everything is walled garden, and one at the same time, people have the freedom to build and reuse different components within the platforms. Right? So next is habit number 3, embrace the journey. And so what do I mean by embracing the journey? That means that successful customers have started small, right? So just like building stamina for a marathon, you start small, you start with a 5K and you go up to the marathon. So you choose a manageable project, a manageable race. They're able to demonstrate early successes. Prove you can do a 5K, then move to 10K, and so on. All right, so prove the business value of the citizen development program. Go through a couple of iterations, and then they've gotten the right standards and procedures in place, and they grow from there, right? And think about that journey. I see sometimes people fixed into a specific, reaching a specific deadline for their program. But the journey is going to vary agency from agencies and applications for applications, and even different citizen development program within a large agency. Because we've seen examples of customers lasting as long as 5 years or as short as 6 months. So if we were face-to-face, I could surely hear some of you say something like I hear from many agencies, but what comes first? We like the idea of citizen development because we have limited resources, but how do you get people started to go build an application without asking us for too much help, so that we can still do our job and the citizen developers can do their application, while everybody is following the proper governance? And yes, these are good questions, but this is like a chicken and egg situation. And the only way out of this situation is to remember habit number 1 and habit 3, is start small by choosing manageable projects that prove the business value. Otherwise, you get stuck in the state of analysis paralysis forever, right? And so what we've seen customers do is start to increase the level of governance inside those applications. You start small, and then you gradually increase the level of governance and monitoring of those applications as you grow. Yeah. So habit number 4, successful customers have identified the right type of use cases for citizen development, and they go hire the right citizen developers, right? So the great use cases for citizen development are all those repeatable processes. I see that over and over. They usually require data entry in multiple systems, managing tasks and approval via email, back and forth, and maybe managing the approval via spreadsheets, taking the data from an email, entering the data into a legacy system, back and forth. There are tons of systems like this in the federal government, right? And make sure that you go after a process that is a repeatable process. We've also worked with customers going after a one-off type of project that is only used maybe twice a year by two people. These are not the type of good project to start with. You want to start with a project that is impactful, but at the same time within the reach of the skill set of the people that are going to go after that project. And sometimes there may be more complex use cases, but those applications are actually still a good fit for pro developers on the ServiceNow platform. Right? So you may have a complex integration that is going to accelerate the transmission of data, the transmission of approval, improve the communication with citizen services, and automate the review of service requests within the platform. Those are great use cases for pro developers to start with on the platform. So then you need to find the right people. That means people who have the right aptitude and the right attitude. Aptitude in the sense of they have a fundamental understanding of technology. They're typically your Excel power users. And attitude in the sense that they understand being a citizen developer is really a partnership with the core development team. This is not an opportunity to go rogue. It's not an opportunity to create applications poor. It's really an opportunity to work with the core team to drive business value. IT and business working together, like a fusion. And then the stepping stone to the next level, scale, community, and competency. Habit number 5, once you've identified your use cases and your citizen developers, it's important that you enable and empower the citizen developers. Enabling them by ensuring that you've got the proper training in place. Because, citizen development, it's really a part-time job, right? It's about people, employees that found a problem in their department that they want to solve, or maybe the problem is bigger, maybe reaches the whole subcomponent of the agency, but it's still a part-time job. So you want to get started with a training that's tailored and consumable in bite-sized pieces. And then later on, you want to make sure that you have some kind of mechanism for them to demonstrate competency. And that's critical, because you want to make sure that, we talk about, governance, critical governance, incremental governance. And so as citizen developers demonstrate competency in a given area, you can start to give them increased access to building applications on the platform. And then as you validate those credentials, they can become mentors for new citizen developers, allowing you to scale the program and support the next wave of citizen developers. So on the ServiceNow Learning website, the learning map guides you through the courses that you need to take for building applications with App Engine Studio. And that's really super intuitive. That makes it possible for anyone to start their local training journey. And it's all in really small, bite-sized pieces. So you can start anytime. You have, lunch anytime, anywhere. So as you start your journey, you're guided through the training by learning the core skills on the main island. And then from there, you'll be introduced to App Engine Studio and Flow Designer. And then after passing a micro certification, again, small amount of time that you can dedicate, micro certification, well tailored to help with this, you can then hop over to the advanced skill island for more hands-on experience. And of course, there are many other trainings available that are fully available. Right? So talking about hands-on experience, you can actually join us in person for a free hands-on low-code app engine workshop. We hold those workshops every month, and they're really fun and stimulating. They're actually so fun. We've had people come back and attend multiple times. Every time they talk about how the first workshop they attended gave them some ideas, and they came back to test those ideas with us. And really the whole workshop is really about networking between agencies. We had multiple agencies talking about what they do together, what they do each in their different agencies, and sometimes thinking about how they can actually enable collaboration and reuse. We had people say, hey, I've built this app in my agency, and the other person's saying, oh, I need this app, how can we share? So great collaboration. And in those workshops, you're going to hear about how other agencies are using ServiceNow for their low-code program, what are the good use cases, and then you're going to practice working with people on ideating on a scenario that you're going to really think with other people and get some different ideas about a use case that you want to build quickly. And then in the afternoon, that's when you're going to build. For many people, it has been their very first low-code application that they've built. So really, if you are serious about development on the Now platform, take your phone, scan this QR code, and it will bring you to the Carahsoft website to register for the next workshop on April 26th at our ServiceNow office in Virginia. All right? So again, if you're serious about development on the Now platform, scan this QR code to register for the next workshop. You don't have to do that, the registering part right now, but keep that on your phone for later. Right? So the next habit is, once you've been successful with your first project, it's important that you celebrate and market those successes. And really internally, so the business and the IT are aware of the power of the capabilities around citizen development, because success breeds success. So that internal marketing is really important, because you want to talk about the business value that you generated with your citizen development program. And that business value will help you raise awareness and excitement. It's so critical for the success of the program, because at the end of the day, it's a unique partnership between IT and the business. And you need to get everyone excited about the opportunities to work together. Right? So next, you want to establish process and technical guardrails to mitigate any risk as you grow, right? Because at the end of the day, this is really about building applications, and those applications are still, they still need to go through a lifecycle management, right? From the intake, build of those applications, making sure that you can monitor, go back and maintain those applications, monitor those applications, retire those applications, making sure that you reduce the technical debt. Right? These are, great questions. So the next step is really to think about how ServiceNow can help you with that. And so what we did is that we put a lot of tooling available inside App Engine Management Center that allows you, with the intake of those new application requests, to make sure that you allow people to build the right application, and that make sure that you can prioritize those applications. And then from building those applications, you have App Engine Studio, an experience to build applications very quickly. that doesn't require a lot of, that only requires a very short learning curve. And then once the citizen developer have built the application, just clicking on submit this application inside App Engine Studio will push this application through the pipeline to allow people to validate this application. And then App Engine Administrator that we talked about earlier will be able to use App Engine Management Center to review those requests and deploy those applications. And then later on, we have the ability to monitor those applications, understand who is using those applications, right? Because that's really very important. And our new release, Utah, there was actually a feature that was asked by a federal agency that was just released inside Utah, which is the ability to limit, invite someone to build an application, but also limit more what they can do to make sure that we limit the number of applications that people can create based on their skill sets and based on their permissions. All right. So with all the monitoring, you're able to reduce the application sprawl, making sure that it doesn't go off the charts, that people are building applications left and right. That allows you to track the adoption and also the development activity of the people building those applications. And talking about lifecycle management, we have a pipeline model that allows you to define your own configuration. From development, testing to production, you can define your own instances and the type of workflow that you want to put in place when moving an application from development to production. And then you can view each application usage in production. That gives you a single pane of view to understand, was it worth it to build this application? So think about the whole cycle and those habits that we talk about building those applications. You're going to be able to monitor if those applications that you invested on are being used and are going to be needed some more maintenance. So this helps you prioritize the work as you go for the next month for those applications. Right? And it's not just for citizen developments in terms of custom applications and workflows, but it's also now available within the automation center to give you visibility across all the robotic process automation that you build on the ServiceNow platform. So now it's really ServiceNow as a platform to really allow you to automate any kind of workflow inside your organization. Yeah. And the final level is really expand across the enterprise. Right? In many organizations, you know that you have an IT backlog that looks like this. A lot of ideas, a lot of requests for maintenance, a lot for upgrading legacy applications, applying patches, and so on. And a lot of organizations that we talk with are really focused on creating a center of excellence. But you add a COE actually becomes its own backlog. I had created a multiple center of excellence before, and you start working in a steering committee and having to review everything and trying to filter every demand, and it becomes another bottleneck within the organization. So what really we think about, we've seen successful, is really think about adopting a community of practice that is really more decentralized, where each group within the organization is going to help each other and build on the learning of each other, how they built applications before, instead of having a bottleneck, right? And because of the ability of ServiceNow to allow anyone to build the application without interfering with others, then you'll be able to put more trust in people building application ability. Okay? So once you've understand that, you know, really thinking about building a community, right? This can only be possible by thinking about how you enable and continue to empower all the citizen developers, right? And what we've seen, I mean, there are different models about that, like community of practice, But at the end of the day, is really we've seen people being successful is by setting up some kind of weekly office hours to help anyone that has a question about citizen development, and then collecting the common knowledge into a knowledge base, and then putting in place some automation with our tools to automate some of the deployments and some of the integrations between applications. And then everything together starts building this community of practice. Huh? So as a summary, to really summarize these 8 habits, I want to talk about how Medtronic, a global company for medical device, went through all these steps. They started by successfully delivering, by really choosing a project that had an impact. They started by meeting with business users that had a business problem, and they had a solution for them. Right? And there were only a small team of 2 people to get started. And they adopted ServiceNow for their IT service desk and also for the HR services. And they knew that at the foundation, ServiceNow was able to automate tasks and workflows. So they knew they could use it to manage work better. And they embraced the journey. Right? Like I said, they started small and they focused on the manageable problem to solve. And they leveraged a lot of out-of-the-box capabilities like the service portal, catalog item and workflow tools. And they selected the right use case and people. That use case was focused on a large group of users, and the requirements were feasible in a short amount of time. It was really the perfect conditions for them to begin the journey. And when they were successful, because they were able to build this first application in less than 2 weeks, well, I'm sure that they were, pretty intense 2 weeks, they started communicating their success. And that initial success was very visible inside the organization. And this led to a growing demand for more applications, and eventually led them to the decision to establish a citizen development program. Right? And it's really key here to understand is that a lot of people go after, we need to build a citizen development program first, but actually it's the success that helps you build that citizen development program. Right? And then they were able to recruit more people because people hear about the success, and everybody more people actually wanted to participate. So the Medtronic teams set up a training program to ensure their citizen developers understand how to use the platform effectively. They taught them how that they make sure that they follow the guidelines that they started to put in place. And they started to put in place weekly office hours. And that started to build this community of practice that I just mentioned, right? So with that, we can take any question that people have. Are there any questions in the chat?
Yes, we did get a few. If you're able to toggle back, we did have a question on slides number 20 and number 21. And they asked, is it meaningful that there are no arrows between the shared services layer and the layer above it?
No, this is just an omission on my part.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because actually the scoping mechanism inside ServiceNow allows you to share and at the same time restrict access between applications. So you build your integrations, your applications inside your own container, and then out of the box, those applications or integrations are limiting their access from other applications. But then if you want to open them, then that allows you complete freedom for reuse within your organization. For example, recently I built an application, a prototype for the FAA, actually 4 prototypes. And, many of those applications needed aircraft data. So I built the tables to capture the aircraft data into one table. And then my 3 other applications were able to reuse the same tables. I didn't have to rebuild that over and over again. You said there was another question for the next slide?
Yeah, I think they go hand in hand, though.
Okay.
The next question is, you place the governance aspects surrounding establishing process and technical guardrails towards the end. Could you explain the reason behind that?
Yeah. So it's a great question because I talk with a lot of agencies and everybody is concerned because you want to make sure that nobody goes into the system and makes an error that's going to impact the whole platform, right? And the operations of the agency. Completely understood. But it's critical to remember that that model that we just talked about limits what developers can do in the platform. They can only change their own app or their own corner of the apartment. So the risk of someone making a mistake and impacting the system is very low, right? But ServiceNow provides a tool as well called Health Scan. And that tool allows to run automated tests, and those tests come with best practices out of the box from the platform, and allows you to create your own best practices and tests so that when you deploy an application, you can run the health scan on those applications to ensure that those applications are actually in sync with the guidelines in your agency. And something else to have in mind is almost every agency is different, and they have actually different risk profile, right? So if we build a citizen development program in a national security agency, it's going to be different than a regular civilian agency or DoD. But also, applications have different risk profile too. So I could be putting together an application and a intelligence agency, but that application is for requesting parking access, right? So there are some data that we need to be careful about, but the whole process is not that sensitive. So there is very low impact on other applications, very compartmentalized. So that's why it's always, it depends, right? You have to think in terms of the whole strategy, the whole stage at where you are in your citizen development program, because you want to be agile. And many successful customers actually that we talked with, they didn't have the perfect framework in place from day one. And that's where a lot of agencies that I talk with are stuck at is, oh, we need to have the perfect framework in place. We want everything to be locked in. It really depends on the application profile and the risk of that application. But most customers and most agencies that are really starting to scale their citizen development, they initially started to work on their own and with IT on their deployment, and then they gradually improved the governance and best practices over time. Right? So that really depends on your agency and your organization. Yeah. Any other question?
We had another question. They said, for clarity, does ServiceNow have a dev environment citizen developers can use for learning and testing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, great question. So if you go to developer.servicenow.com, you can get a free personal instance to start learning, building application on the platform. And if you go to the Now Learning website, many of the trainings come with other instances for a dedicated problem solving. So for example, if you go through the free robotic process automation training, you get your own virtual machine as well as your own ServiceNow development instance. So everything comes in a almost ready for you to get started just today. You go to developer.servicenow.com, you get your own instance, and those instances are really for learning. They are not for building a full-fledged application. So this is where you get started, get your lessons learned, and go back to your agency's IT and ask for setting up a citizen development instance, right? Or giving you a space inside their instance.
And the last questions I see are tied to those low-code workshops. So people want to know, are the workshops only being held in the DC area? And if so, is there an option to attend virtually?
Oh, that's a great question, because we have that question often. So right now they are officially monthly workshops in Northern Virginia, but if you have the need for a workshop inside your office, anywhere if you have, at least a small team of people that want to learn more about building custom applications on with a citizen development program with ServiceNow, we'll be happy to come to you and have your own workshop at your location.
Sounds great. And those are all the questions that we have had so far. Mark, did you have any final words before we wrap things up?
No, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for spending the time with us this afternoon. And if you have any question, reach out to Carosoft, reach out to me, Mark Moyes at ServiceNow.com. And looking forward to hear from you and work on digitizing the federal government.
Thank you, Mark. I'd also like to thank all of our participants for being with us today. We hope this information you received during the webinar has been helpful. If you have any further questions or like to request more information, as Mark mentioned, please feel free to reach out. If you enjoyed our Tech Talk today, we will be hosting our next session on April 20th, where we will discuss full lifecycle enterprise asset management with one platform. An invitation to register will be emailed to you along with today's recording. If you are interested in getting signed up today, I will also put that link in the chat for you all. Thank you again and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.